So here on the channel, we always talk about using credit cards to earn rewards and things like free travel and gain access to other premium benefits and rewards that come with credit cards as well. But in order to do these things, the first step is actually being approved for the credit card. And sometimes you may think that you'll be approved for a certain credit card, however, you still end up getting denied. And in that moment, you might be thinking to yourself, well, how did I get denied for the credit card? So in today's video, I'm gonna be sharing with you 3 things that I always follow and that I always do when I'm looking at getting a credit card to make sure that I have the best chances of being approved for that credit card, and so that you guys can take the tips from this video, apply them to your own strategy when you're applying for a credit card. So hopefully by doing this, you'll be able to get more approvals instead of denials. And so the first step that you're going to want to do is going to be identifying your situation. So what I mean by this is the first thing that you're going to want to do is to be aware of your credit history and your current credit score. Now, to find out your credit history and your credit score, you can use a free tool like Credit Karma, or you can use something that's a little bit more in-depth and a little bit more detailed like Experian. Both of these options are free, and you can use these to learn about your credit history, how many hard inquiries you currently have, what your current credit score is, and a bunch of other really important factors that come into play when applying for a credit card. And the reason that this is so important is because if you're not aware of your current credit situation and what your credit score is looking like, this can make it difficult to know what range you fall in, and it can make it difficult to know what credit cards you can actually be approved for. So for example, if you are someone who has very little credit history, or you're just starting out and building your credit score and you have a lower credit score, maybe in the range of 650 to 670, it's highly unlikely that you're going to be getting these super premium travel cards like the American Express Platinum, Capital One Venture X, or even the Chase Sapphire Reserve, for example. Instead, what you're going to be doing is getting a simple, no annual fee beginner credit card that'll earn you cash back, or maybe even a secured credit card that allows you to start out and start building and establishing your credit as well as your credit history. And the next step, and arguably one of the most important steps in identifying your situation, is going to be identifying if you are someone who is responsible with credit cards or not. So if you are someone who hasn't had a responsible history with credit cards, or you're someone who currently has a ton of credit card debt and a ton of high balances across many different credit cards, then it probably isn't the best idea to go and add on to that by getting more credit cards and applying for more credit cards. Not only is this going to result in you taking on even more debt, but chances are you're going to be denied for most credit cards, and that's because credit issuers are going to see that you are already using a lot of your available credit, and this is something that they look at as high risk because you're using so much available credit. They're not going to want to loan you or lend you even more credit that you can use and not pay back. And that's why identifying your credit situation is going to be such a valuable thing, and it's such an important thing to do before you move on to some of the other tips on this list. So now that you've identified your personal credit card situation, the next step that you're going to move on to is going to be optimizing your credit card strategy. And what I mean by this is taking a look at what your personal goals are with credit cards and what you're looking to get out of credit cards, so this way you can take that and decide what credit cards are going to be the best to accomplish these goals with. And another thing you're going to want to keep in mind when optimizing your credit card strategy is going to be credit card rules. So for example, something like the Chase 524 rule, this just means that if you've opened any more than 5 accounts across any issuers in the past 24 months, then you will automatically be denied for any Chase credit cards until that period has passed. So if you are someone who is, again, just starting out in your credit card journey, or you only have 1 to 2 credit cards, it might be a smart idea to start getting Chase credit cards early on so you can avoid that 524 rule, and then you're free and clear to move on to other credit cards from other issuers. And something I personally like to do when I'm optimizing my credit card strategy is if I'm looking to get a credit card that has a sign-up bonus that requires me to spend a large amount of money to hit that sign-on bonus, then I recommend always applying for that credit card around a larger life purchase or a larger expense that you're going to make anyways. So for example, when I got my Chase Sapphire Preferred card, it had a $4,000 spend requirement to get the sign-up bonus. I waited until I knew I had a lot of expenses that I was going to have to pay for, and I applied for the card, got the credit card, and put those expenses on the Chase Sapphire card. So by doing this, you're able to hit your sign-up bonus or your spend requirement relatively easily, but you're not gonna have to go into any extra debt or spend any extra money that you weren't planning on, because you're just using those larger expenses that you were going to have to pay for anyways and just putting them on the credit card and then paying it off at the end of the month, so you're able to hit hit that spend requirement a little bit easier. And lastly, when you're optimizing your credit card strategy, it's going to be important and you're going to want to choose the right credit cards that align with your lifestyle. So for example, if you're someone who very rarely ever travels, then you probably wouldn't go out and get something like the American Express Platinum card that comes with a super high annual fee when you're not going to be able to extract the full value of the card because you're not traveling and using those premium benefits, so this card wouldn't be worth it in your situation. So when optimizing your credit card strategy, make sure you ask questions such as what are your goals with credit cards, what are you trying to accomplish with credit cards, plan out credit card sign-up bonuses around larger life expenses, and choose credit cards that align with your lifestyle and your personal goals. And the last thing that you can do to avoid being denied for a credit card is going to be calling the reconsideration line. So something a lot of people don't actually know is that if you were denied for a credit card, most of these credit card companies actually have a number that you can call and speak to a representative that works in the reconsideration department. And this is something that I've actually personally done before. So when I was applying for my American Express Blue Business Plus card, at first I was actually denied for this card, which was super surprising to me at the time. Then I remembered that I previously in the past couple of months had applied for a few personal American Express cards that I was approved for. So I think it was just an automatic thing where the system saw that as a red flag, denied my application. However, I was able to call up American Express customer support, speak to someone from the reconsideration line. I explained to them my situation and why I was trying to get the credit card. And after verifying some pieces of information that they asked me about, I was able to be approved for the card instantly before I had gotten off the phone. And this means that if you were denied for a certain credit card when you believe that you should have been approved for it, you can actually call this reconsideration line and speak to a representative about having your application status approved as opposed to being denied. However, if you were denied due to a certain credit card rule, for example, the Chase 524 rule, then unfortunately they will not be able to help you in this regard because these are credit card rules that the credit issuer has set in place. And these are rules that cannot be undone or overwritten for any circumstances. And so unfortunately, if you were denied for a specific credit card rule, and this is one instance where calling the reconsideration line will not work. And while this method may not work 100% of the time, you'd actually be surprised at how often this method can actually work, assuming you have good credit and you've practiced everything else that we've talked about in the video leading up to this point. Then sometimes you can just be denied due to a system error or an automatic red flag that the system put there. And so when you call the reconsideration line, you're speaking to an actual person, able to explain your situation, why you were trying to get the credit card, and answer a few more questions that they'll ask you. By doing this, a lot of times they'll actually approve your application instead of it being denied. Now, a quick thing that I want to mention with doing this is when you're on the phone with this person, make sure you're super polite and super friendly. Remember, the representative that you're speaking to is the person who has the power to decide whether your application stays as a denial or they approve it. So as always, just make sure you're super polite and super kind when you're speaking to that representative on the phone call. And so that's going to be it for my top 3 tips to do when you're applying for a credit card. So that way you can limit the amount of denials that you have and start getting more and more credit card approvals. And if you have any other tips that you found helpful when it comes to doing this, make sure to leave them down in the comment section below and I would love to hear from you. If you did find this video informative and enjoyed it, I would appreciate it if you could drop a like down below, since it helps me out tremendously. And if you're interested in more credit card and personal finance tips just like the ones in this video, then consider subscribing to the channel so you never miss a new upload. And as always, each and every one of you are amazing and I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to click on my video and check it out. And I hope each and every one of you have a fantastic rest of your day.